Before we dive into today's story, make sure you hit that subscribe button, share this video with someone who loves powerful Western tales, and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Your support helps keep these stories alive. Now saddle up, because what you're about to hear is a tale of courage, destiny, and a single sentence that changed two lives forever. A shy rancher, an Apache woman with unwavering resolve, a choice that bridged two worlds. This is one story you won't forget. Let's get started. The desert wind carried the scent of dust and mesquite as Eli Turner guided his horse across the open range, unaware that his quiet life was about to collide with something far greater than routine. Eli was a man known for silence, not for stories. He had never chased excitement, never sought glory. His days were marked by sun-up chores and sundown stillness, a rhythm carved into him like the grooves in old saddle leather. Nothing in him anticipated change, and certainly not the kind brought by a woman whose courage outpaced the horizon. Eli first saw her on a scorching afternoon when the sun glared down with an almost personal anger. He had followed the echoing cry of a calf stranded somewhere along the rocky ridge. As he freed the trembling animal from thorny brush, his horse startled at the distant growl of something unseen. Eli slipped, crashing down the slope, pain erupting through his leg. Breathless and stunned, he lay helpless in the dust, the sun a blazing white blur above him. It was then that footsteps approached, steady, precise, and unhurried. Nachi emerged from the brush with the quiet authority of someone who understood both land and danger. She knelt beside him without hesitation, her dark eyes scanning his injury with practiced calm. Her hands moved with purpose, checking bone, rotating the ankle, assessing pain with gentle pressure. She spoke only when necessary, her voice low and composed. When she finished, she fashioned a makeshift brace and offered him water. Eli tried to thank her, but his clumsy words dissolved in the heat. She nodded once, accepting his gratitude without ceremony. She walked beside his horse through 2 long miles of harsh terrain, getting him home with unwavering steadiness. When they reached a point where he could continue alone, she stepped back and vanished into the hills as quietly as she had appeared. But Eli carried her presence long after she was gone. He remembered her confidence, her certainty, her strength wrapped in silence, a reflection of something he felt within himself, yet had never seen so clearly in another. She became a thought he couldn't shake, a sensation lingering like a warm ember. Days later he found reasons, poor excuses, really, to ride near the foothills where he'd met her, checking fence lines that needed no checking, inspecting trails he already knew. He tried to convince himself it was coincidence, but the truth tugged at him with quiet persistence. When Nachi reappeared, it was she who approached, her steps measured and sure. Their conversation was brief, awkward for him, effortless for her. But beneath the surface, something shifted, an unspoken understanding that neither attempted to label or explain. Their meetings continued in that same unplanned, natural rhythm. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they shared only silence. Eli brought small gestures, a fixed basket, a bundle of firewood, a leather strap he had tooled himself. Nachi offered insight into plants, the behavior of the land, the paths carved by wind and water. Their worlds were different, shaped by different histories, yet neither felt the need to defend their way of life. Instead, a quiet bond formed, slow, steady, honest, like water shaping stone over time. One evening, the sky softened into shades of dusk, the air cool and gentle. They stood near a small creek, the kind that whispered its way through the hills without demanding attention. Eli presented Nachi with a beaded strap he'd made, its pattern imperfect but offered with sincerity. She examined it with care, understanding the effort behind every stitch. Her gaze rose to meet his, and in that stillness, she spoke a sentence that struck him harder than any fall from a horse. "I want a child from you," she said calmly, without hesitation. The words stopped his breath, not because they were shocking, but because they were so unvarnished, so sincere. She stood with the confidence of someone who knew what she wanted and saw no need to hide it. For her people, such a request was not forward or improper. It was truthful. It meant she respected him, that she saw his spirit, his steadiness, his goodness. Eli froze, overwhelmed by the weight of what she had asked. His heart thundered as he stared at her, searching for something, clarity, understanding, a hint of jest. But her eyes held only truth. His silence stretched on, thick and uncertain. It wasn't refusal that kept him from speaking. It was fear, fear of a world that judged harshly, fear of raising a child between cultures that rarely showed mercy, fear of wanting something so deeply that it shook the foundation of everything he had built his life upon. Nechi watched him patiently, her expression softening. "You do not need to answer now," she said, stepping away with quiet grace. And then she turned and walked into the gathering twilight, leaving him with a heart full of questions he had never dared to ask himself. That night Eli lay awake, staring at the ceiling as thoughts churned like a storm inside him. He remembered her strength, the way she moved through the world with assurance. He remembered the calm in her eyes, the steadiness of her hands, the honesty of her request. He thought of the challenges ahead, the expectations of settlers, the traditions of her people, the scrutiny of both worlds. But beyond all fear was something else, something deeper, quieter, undeniable. He cared for her. More than he had ever cared for anyone. And the truth of that settled into him like the first warm light of morning. He knew one thing for certain: whatever his answer would be, it would change everything. And for the first time in his life, the possibility of change did not terrify him. It awakened him. It made him feel alive. Morning light found Eli saddling his horse with a determination he hadn't felt in years. He didn't rehearse his words. He knew rehearsed words would crumble the moment he looked into Nechi's calm, steady eyes. Instead, he trusted the truth inside him, the one that had kept him awake through the long night. The ride toward the foothills felt different this time, not a wandering pull of hope, but a deliberate march toward fate. He didn't know where exactly she would be, but the land seemed to guide him, carrying him toward the woman who had changed everything. He spotted her near a small grove of cottonwoods, seated on a smooth stone as she threaded beads with quiet focus. She did not startle when he rode into view. She simply raised her head, meeting his gaze with the same patience she had shown the day she first saved him. Eli dismounted slowly, as if each movement steadied the storm inside him. He walked toward her until he stood just a few steps away. Silence stretched between them, not empty but full of choices, risks, and the weight of their two worlds. Eli's voice trembled when he finally spoke, yet it held a strength he had never used before. He told her he wasn't afraid of her request, only of failing her, of failing a future neither of them deserved to lose. He said he wanted to honor her, not merely give her a child and walk away into his own world. He wanted a life with her, a family with her, a bond rooted not in obligation, but in something deeper, something he felt every time she looked at him without judgment. Nechi listened, unmoving, until his words faded into the wind. When she rose to her feet, her expression softened into something rare, something close to tenderness. She placed her palm against his chest, right above his thundering heart. In her culture, such a gesture was not casual. It was understanding, acceptance, a silent promise. "You speak truth," she said quietly, "and truth binds stronger than fear." Eli felt the world shift beneath him, not in the way of uncertainty, but in the way of belonging. He wasn't stepping into her world alone. She was stepping into his, meeting him in the space between. Their families reacted with caution, suspicion, even concern. Eli's neighbors whispered warnings, some out of prejudice, others out of fear of conflict. Nechi's people watched him with guarded eyes, measuring his sincerity, testing his intentions without speaking a word. But Eli showed up every day, helping gather wood, learning traditions unfamiliar to him, listening more than he spoke. Nechi visited the ranch, helping tend cattle, learning his routines as easily as she walked the land. Slowly, barriers softened. Respect grew where doubt once stood. Two communities, separated by history, began to see what Eli and Nechi already knew. Seasons passed, and their bond deepened like roots claiming fertile soil. They built a small home between the ranch and the foothills, a symbol of the life they were shaping. Eli crafted the frame with his own hands. Nechi decorated its interior with woven patterns that carried stories of her people. They worked the land together, rested together, and shared quiet evenings watching the sky burn with sunset colors. They spoke more freely now, though silence still played a part in their bond. Silence for them wasn't absence, it was peace. When Nechi told him she carried their child, Eli felt a stillness settle over him, a stillness made of wonder, fear, gratitude, and fierce devotion. She placed his hand against her belly, where new life stirred beneath her touch. And in that moment, Eli understood why she had chosen him, not because he was bold or loud or admired by many, but because he was steady, because he listened, because his heart, though quiet, was unwavering. Their child would carry two worlds within them, not divided, but united. A bridge, not a fracture. A beginning, not a burden. The day their son was born, the sky lit up with stars so bright the desert seemed to shimmer. He entered the world strong and loud, his cries echoing across the hills. Eli held him first, tears blurring the universe around him. Nachi rested with a serene smile, watching her two strengths, Eli's gentleness and her courage, merge into something new and unstoppable. That night, as the fire crackled outside their small home, Eli whispered to his sleeping son that he would grow knowing both sides of his heritage, learning the value of silence, the meaning of courage, and the power of truth spoken without fear. Their story became one remembered not for conflict but for harmony, for choosing connection where others chose division, for building a life between two worlds without abandoning either. And though time would bring challenges, as time always does, the bond between Eli and Nachi remained unbroken. Their love was not loud, not dramatic, not wrapped in spectacle. It was steady, honest, rooted in respect. And through that, their legacy took shape in the heart of the desert, where a shy rancher and an Apache woman once chose each other against all odds, creating a family strong enough to carry two histories into one future.